You can see the slides.
Yep.
So I'm going to be talking about a kind of rather simplistic idea, the use of hand gel versus hand washing. And the focus, certainly because of our committee, the sustainability committee, is focused on environment. I'm going to tie this into finances, and you'll see why here in a second. So I have no financial disclosures, and this project was a project that we were tasked with during my Master of Healthcare Administration. I figured I would present this because it actually does imply or have underlying this the reason why you probably would benefit from tying this into a financial incentive. And the financial details are tied into when I was in CL Children's and ties in purely based on the number of cases they did. It really can be applied to any of them. Just happened to be that's where I was, and I just chose to use those um, number of cases just as an example. It can be usable in any location. As we all know, as surgeons, we hand scrub every single day that we're in the operating room. It's highly ingrained in what we do. It's a habit, a good habit, and part of our culture. We don't think a lot about what hand scrubbing does in terms of the environment. It does have a carbon footprint and has hidden costs. And the proposal really promotes the use of sterilium or Avogard. You can choose whichever, you can choose both, but either of them have similar financial as well as environmental advantages. The goal really is to protect the environment, but also reduce costs. And these goals are really tightly tied together here. There's also an added benefit if you end up choosing to locate these pumps inside the operating room because it reduces the number of times you actually walk in and out of the operating room. So as some brief background, I am quite sure all of you have seen these agents, one or both of them before. Sterilium is essentially an 85% ethanol product. Avogard is a 61% ethyl alcohol product with chlorhexidine as well. Both of them are very popular. I'm sure you have them one or both in your hospitals right now. There's strong evidence that hand gels can safely replace hand scrubbing. It has a 3 to 6 hour immediate and durable effect. And most hospitals, as I mentioned, stock them already. And the proposal is to use this in lieu of hand washing after your first hand wash. So for 1 year at a hospital, there was approximately 15,000 cases in both the main and ambulatory care center. And on average, water-based scrubs take about 3 to 5 minutes with water, soap, and a brush. Hand gel is purely based on administering the hand gel on your hands and rubbing it up your forearms and on your hands. It takes 2 to 2.5 minutes. And if you add all this time based out, the water-based scrub translates to about just over 1,000 hours. If you add up all the people in the room that are scrubbing and how many times you have to do it, it also, if you have 4 individuals per case, translates into 8 discrete door openings. And why that's important is because each time you open the door and close it, there are ventilation changes that occur, as well as a chance that particles can enter the room. Sterilium translates to about 611 hours, and Avogard just almost 500 hours. So what does it all mean? So from a financial analysis, if you purely wash your hands with water-based scrub, the brushes and water, you can see on the second column to the right, the overall rough costs to Seattle Children's for 1 year, which is not a huge amount. It's $250,000 over 5 years, just over $1 million. In comparison, if you end up using sterilium, the costs are reduced. So the costs for 1 year is $150,000. So you have about $130,000 saving in 1 year versus 5 years, it's $650,000 savings. So that's advantageous. And you have similar findings if you end up using Avogard. 110,000 and $500,000. In terms of the environmental analysis, if you ended up using water scrub for each single case, it takes about 20 liters of water used for each scrub. And for people, one can calculate that Seattle Children's use just over 1 million liters of water annually. And you take that, that is equivalent to approximately one large aquarium in one of the the water aquariums in I'm sure many places have aquariums. You also add in the scrub brushes, the packaging, and the towels. Sterilium has a recyclable bottle, and four D-size batteries. Avogard has a 16-ounce bottles and four C-size batteries. The batteries can be recycled, the bottle can be recycled. So that's a little bit change or difference in terms of the environmental analysis as well. The funds for Sterilium and Avogard are primarily purchased on contract. Most places have Medline, so that can easily be purchased through that. The only expenses needed would be adding and moving dispensers, as I mentioned earlier, into the operating rooms. And as I mentioned before, if you end up having that within the operating rooms, you eliminate people walking in and out. And that also saves you from some of the additional electricity costs that would be required in order to balance out the air in the room and the pressure in the room as well. One would anticipate the cost of hand gels would rise because people are using it, but ultimately the cost savings would be there in the long run. The risks for adoption of this are probably not a huge amount. It just may be that people don't do it just because people are by and large use water-based scrub by habit. You would end up probably needing to purchase this. It requires money, obviously. Hand gels are also flammable, so you have to be careful about where you put them in the room. In terms of the internal implications, your key audience primarily is surgeons and the trainees. The former may be reticent to change, and the latter may not understand this if you only do it in one hospital because they're probably not used to it. Placing the dispenser in the operating room might be a visible reminder of the change. I promoted a concept of the first scrub being water and soap, and the second and subsequent being hand gel, with three benefits: primarily reduction in costs, infection reduction, and environmental savings. And so with those three benefits, again, because this is a sustainability committee, I thought this would be something that would be interesting. But the part which I found very intriguing, because this was part of the project from my MHA, was the fact that we were taught that you do, if you have a financial incentive for a hospital to do this, this becomes much easier to sell to them as being something that would be a useful change to implement. And so my point being, that would be helpful if you can tie in a financial benefit. So I'll stop sharing here and see if anyone has any questions.
Ken, I had a, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Linda.
Okay. Ken, I saw that you mentioned something about the infectious disease risk.
Yeah.
Did you look to see if there were any differences in like the surgical site infection rate after you switched over to the waterless gels?
Yeah, so I mean, so when we built the new operating rooms, the new the Sterilium and the was primarily placed inside the operating rooms. We didn't end up doing a campaign, like in terms of like implementing that. We essentially just built it in there, and the campaign never actually happened. So I'm not sure actually anyone tracked this, which is a challenge because you make the change, you kind of want to see if you actually demonstrated a significant decrease in infection. It was a theoretical improvement, but I could not demonstrate people were actually even doing this. So that's a challenge, obviously.
Richard, you had a point.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Ken. Thank you. That's so cool because we have very new ORs too. A couple things are with respect to the hand water washing. was that presuming that the water stays on the whole time? Because if you scrub for, let's say, 3 minutes, at least for me, it's on just for, you know, 30 seconds at the start and 30 seconds at the end, rather
Sure.
than the whole time. That's one thing. What did you think about that?
It's hard, obviously, to know. Everyone
Yeah.
has different ways of scrubbing. So I only found a couple papers that quoted how much water was utilized in a scrub, and I just chose to use those numbers. Obviously, if you leave it on, as your parents probably told you, if you leave the water on longer, you're using up more water. So you
Yeah,
listen to mom. It's good.
I guess it's people like us that realize I'm not leaving the water on because I don't want to use more water.
Sure.
Number two is, interestingly, when we just built these ORs within the past year and a half, they're lovely, but the Avogard stuff is outside, like you said, rather than inside, which doesn't allow for that benefit of the in and out of the operating room. It's the same as the water, which is not good. And then lastly, or I would say, as environmentally friendly as I want to be, it's very, and I don't think it's only me, it's very irritating to my skin, and I had to stop it, the Avogard. Has anyone else had that problem, or had you heard that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people end up having issues with either the sterilium being almost pure alcohol being like dries out your skin sometimes, and
Yeah,
people react to the chlorhexidine that's in the Avogard. And for sure, I mean, there's no doubt that none of these agents are perfect. And I mean, the way I got this idea was that in one of the hospitals I was practicing in, which was not a Seattle Children's one, they had the sterilium inside the operating room. I'm
right.
thinking, this is actually fascinating. In fact, no one's walking outside; they're just using it, and it was opposite in Seattle. And I thought this is a clever idea, and then I kind of looked into it a little bit more, and to me, it made a lot of sense. Like, why would you walk outside when you don't have to?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm sure there's data out there showing at least no worse infection rate, but maybe the same or better, or else no places would have adapted those sterilizing agents. It would have been hard, very, very hard to show in your one institution. There's no chance it would
Oh,
have
yeah.
happened. Yeah.
I mean, this was also happening shortly after, I hate to say aspergillus, but after aspergillus occurred, and there was a lot of concern about door openings. And so that
Oh,
was part of the whole impetus as well.
that's great. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
At Valley Hospital, we just moved to a new building, and I was just noticing today, it's my first time in the OR, and they have, the timers on the scrub sinks, but it I don't know why today I was paying attention to it, maybe because I was thinking about this study, but like I hit the button to turn the water on, and it usually starts the timer, and then usually it starts at a 30. The ones I've seen start at 3 minutes and then it runs down. This one like starts if you turn on the water, and then when you turn the water to you hit the water to turn it off, which I do the same thing. I only run it when I need it. Then the timer like resets to 0, and I'm like, that kind of ruins that whole like ability to save water and still like time yourself. Um, so I was
Maybe
like, okay,
practice your math.
yeah.
Together.
It's like it was like one of those stopwatches. Like as soon as you hit it again, it goes back to 0, and I was like, oh, that's pointless. But okay, well, that's really great. I think that's a really great talk. Like I said, at Valley Hospital, that we have the water scrubs everywhere, and some places have Avogard. I don't think we have Avogard in the OR. I have to look again. But at Mount Sinai, we have Ceruleum everywhere, and it's very drying to my skin. But I do try to use the scrub brush for my first one in the day, and then afterwards just stay away from the water-based scrubs.
Is there any data that makes a difference, the first scrub? Because I use Avogard and I don't do it with the first, I do it for all of them, even the first scrub. I know everybody says that's the rule, but I don't know why that should
I'm
be the
going to tell
rule.
on you, Alfred. You're going to get in trouble.
Okay, please don't.
I don't know if there's any data, but I believe even in the Avogard and Sterilium packaging, they state this is to be used after the first hand wash. So again, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what they say, but it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me, so I don't do it.
I think part of it is kind of debris under your fingernails and that kind of stuff, which the gels may not get off because you're just cleansing. So I think part of it is the debris part, which requires the hand washing.
All right, great. I'm going to stop recording.